All right, let's break down one of the most significant geopolitical shifts happening right now: China's incredible military modernization. And look, this isn't just about tallying up new ships or jets. What we're really talking about is a fundamental rewiring of strategy, technology, and global ambition that is literally redrawing the world's security map. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the ticking clock, the political deadlines that are driving all this change at a breakneck pace. Then, we'll dive into the hardware and the strategy behind their anti-access wall, a system designed to keep the US at arm's length. After that, we'll get into the new playbook that guides these forces. And finally, we'll zoom out to see how this all feeds into a much bigger plan for a global military footprint. Okay, so first things first, if you want to really get what's happening with China's military, you have to understand the intense pressure it's under. This isn't some casual, long-term upgrade plan. No, this is an all-out sprint with deadlines set from the very top. Just look at these dates. These are not vague goals on a corporate vision board. These are hard, politically mandated deadlines tied directly to the core ambition of national rejuvenation. The ultimate goal? To have a world-class military by 2049. To get there, they need to complete their modernization by 2035. But the date that really has planners in the Pentagon sweating is 2027. That's the benchmark for having the capability to fight and win a major regional conflict. So when you're under that kind of pressure, you need a pretty powerful strategy. And the absolute centerpiece of China's military plan for the Indo-Pacific is what analysts call an anti-access/area denial network. You can just think of it as a giant, high-tech keep out sign designed to make it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for U.S. forces to operate anywhere near China's coast. Let's quickly break down that military jargon. A2/AD. Anti-access is all about stopping your opponent from even getting into the fight in the first place. Area denial is about making it so lethal for the forces that are already there that they can't move or operate effectively. The whole concept is a direct counter to the way the U.S. has projected power for decades, with forward bases and aircraft carrier groups right up close to the action. And here is the hardware that makes this keep-out sign so formidable. At its core, you have some of the most advanced ballistic missiles on the planet. There's the infamous DF-21D, better known as the carrier killer. Then you have the DF-26, the Guam killer, for reasons we'll see in a second. And then there's the really scary stuff, like the DF-17, a hypersonic weapon that travels at such incredible speeds and with such an unpredictable flight path that it's a total nightmare for any current missile defense system. Let's just hang on that DF-26 range for a second. 4,000 kilometers. This single number is a massive strategic game changer. Why? Because it means that critical U.S. military hubs, especially Andersen Air Force Base on Guam, are now well within striking distance of conventional Chinese missiles. It effectively creates a bubble that pushes U.S. aircraft carriers so far back from the fight that their own jets might not have the range to be of any use. And you gotta know, they are not just hoping these missiles work, they are practicing. The PLA has built enormous, full-scale mock-ups of American aircraft carriers and destroyers out in the middle of the desert. Some of them are even on rails to simulate the movement of a ship at sea. This is how they're perfecting the incredibly complex targeting needed to hit a moving, defending warship from thousands of kilometers away. It's pretty serious stuff. This same basic logic also applies to air power. And this isn't even a new idea. The PLA has essentially dusted off a century-old playbook from an Italian air power theorist, Giulio Douhet. His argument was simple. Why get into a bunch of risky dogfights when you can just bomb the enemy's airfields into rubble? From this point of view, the most critical vulnerability for American air power isn't the stealth fighters themselves. It's the big, stationary runways in places like Japan and Guam that they need to take off and land. Now, having all this amazing hardware is one thing, but you need the software to run it, right? You need a smarter way of fighting. And that brings us to doctrine, the new set of ideas that's guiding how all these advanced systems are actually supposed to be used in a real conflict. And this is where we see a really profound shift in thinking. For years, the PLA's goal was what they called informatized warfare, which was basically about achieving information superiority, knowing more than the other guy. But now, the focus has shifted to intelligentized warfare. The goal here isn't just to have more data, it's to process that data and make a better decision faster than your opponent. The future of warfare, in their eyes, is a battle of algorithms. And to make this new, faster way of war a reality, They took a sledgehammer to their old command structure. They completely reorganized their military, tearing down the old, rigid walls between the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. They created new joint theater commands designed to make information flow seamlessly across the entire force, giving them the edge they need to win that high-speed, intelligentized fight. And this isn't ancient history we're talking about. This is happening as we speak. In April of 2024, the PLA created an entirely new military branch, the Information Support Force. Its whole job is to jam the accelerator on integrating AI and advanced networks into their warfighting capabilities. This is physical proof of their doctrinal shift. They literally built a new branch of the military just to win that battle for decision speed. Okay, so we've seen the high-tech fortress they're building in their own backyard. But that's really just part one of the plan. The much bigger ambition is to project that power across the entire globe. You just have to look at the raw numbers to see what's happening. The Chinese Navy is now, by ship count, the largest in the world, with over 370 ships compared to the U.S. Navy's count of just under 300. Now, hold on, numbers aren't everything. The U.S. absolutely maintains a significant qualitative and tonnage advantage, especially when it comes to things like aircraft carriers. But still, you just don't build a fleet this big unless you have serious blue water ambitions. So why the huge Navy? Well, a major driver is simply economics. China's Belt and Road Initiative is a globe-spanning, multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure project. To protect those massive investments and to secure the vital sea lanes, the SLOCs, that carry their trade and energy, they believe they now need a military with global reach. Of course, a global navy needs a global support network, and China is building one using a really clever two-track strategy. On the one hand, you have official overseas military bases, like the one they established in Djibouti back in 2017. But on the other, more subtle track, you have state-owned Chinese companies operating in almost 100 commercial ports around the globe. Each one of those is a potential logistics hub, a place for their navy to refuel and resupply far from home. Which brings us to the big question that hangs over all of this. As China projects its military power further out into the world, and as the U.S. adapts to these new challenges, both sides are grappling with the exact same fundamental dilemma. In this new era of high-tech warfare, how do you balance the need for lethality, for powerful weapons, with the need for survivability? How do you build a force that's strong enough to win, but resilient enough to take the first hit? That right there is the central strategic puzzle of our time.